In a quiet coastal town nestled between mist-covered hills and crashing waves, there lived a man named Elias. He was 32, reserved, and deeply rooted in routines. A book editor by trade, Elias lived alone in an old Victorian house at the edge of town, the last inheritance from his grandmother. The house wasn't luxurious by any modern standard, the plumbing hissed, and the wood groaned when the wind blew, but to Elias, it was more than a roof. It was his sanctuary, his legacy, and the one thing in the world he truly owned. His family, however, saw things differently. It began one Sunday evening over dinner at his parents' house, a modest yet elegant villa near the heart of town. His mother, Claudia, had cooked her signature rosemary lamb, and the table was set like a magazine spread. His younger sister, Serena, was already seated, stirring her wine absent-mindedly, her makeup smudged just enough to appear fragile but not disheveled. Elias hadn't seen her in months. "Elias," Claudia said, folding her hands neatly in her lap, "we need to talk about the house." The moment froze like a dropped plate. Elias set his fork down. "What about it?" "Serena's in trouble," his father, Walter, added, voice low. "She's gotten into a financial mess. Big one." "I can't keep up with the payments," Serena said, eyes wide and glossy. "They're going to garnish my wages, if I had any." Elias glanced at her. "You haven't worked in over a year." "I had a modeling contract," she whispered, like it was a sacred confession. "But things fell through. It's not my fault." Claudia leaned forward, tone shifting from pity to persuasion. "We were thinking. Maybe you could sell the house. Just temporarily, until Serena's debts are paid. Then you could find something smaller." Elias laughed. Not out of amusement, but disbelief. "That house is all I have. It's not some rental. It was Grandma May's. You remember her, don't you? She would have wanted you to help your sister," Claudia said quickly, as if rehearsed. "No," Elias replied simply. "She would have wanted me to have a place I could call mine." Silence. "You're being selfish," Serena said, voice trembling like a harp string about to snap. Elias looked at her, his sister, the golden child, always praised, always forgiven. She'd been bailed out more times than anyone could count. Failed businesses, loans from friends she never repaid, wellness retreats that cost more than a semester of college. And now she was here again, asking him to sacrifice the one thing he'd managed to hold on to in his otherwise quiet, under-the-radar life. "Selfish?" Elias repeated, incredulous. "I've never asked this family for a damn thing. You've drained Mom and Dad dry. You've borrowed from Grandma before she passed. And now you want my home?" Claudia exhaled sharply. "You live alone. It's a large house. It doesn't make sense." "It makes sense to me," Elias said, pushing his plate away. "I worked. I saved. I maintained it when no one else would even visit her. You all called it a haunted museum. Now it's convenient to you." Walter cleared his throat, trying to stay the neutral patriarch. "We just think it's time you gave back." "There it is," Elias said, standing up. "The price tag for being born." Serena's eyes flared with sudden rage. "You're a bitter, lonely man living in a corpse's house. You don't know what it's like to feel real pressure. You sit behind a desk all day. And you sit behind your delusions," he shot back. "Your mistakes are not mine to fix." Claudia stood too now, voice trembling not from fear but fury. "If you walk out of this house without helping your sister, you are turning your back on this family." Elias grabbed his coat. "No," he said, voice quiet but resolute, "I'm finally turning my back on being used." He walked out into the night, the wind catching the tail of his coat like a symbol of finality. His phone buzzed before he reached the street. 5 missed calls. 1 message. "Claudia, you've disappointed us. Family is more important than possessions." He didn't reply. Instead, he drove home, parked beside the rose bushes his grandmother had planted decades ago, and sat on the porch steps in silence. The old house loomed behind him, not a relic, but a promise. Elias lit a cigarette, something he hadn't done in years, and took a deep breath. He knew what was coming. This wasn't the end, it was the beginning of war. But for the first time, he didn't feel fear. He felt free. Elias had always known that his family wielded guilt like a scalpel, sharp, precise, and surgical. But he underestimated how deep they were willing to cut when their manipulation failed. The morning after the dinner, he awoke to a vibrating phone and a sinking feeling in his chest. 23 missed calls. 10 from his mother. 5 from his father. The rest split between his sister and, oddly, Unknown numbers. Messages flooded in like a broken dam. Claudia, Elias, your sister cried herself to sleep. I hope you're happy. Walter, you're making a terrible mistake. Chaos. Serena, I can't believe you would abandon me like this after everything I've been through. He didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, he stood, made coffee in the worn-out French press, and sat on his porch watching the coastal fog drift through the trees like slow-moving ghosts. By the time he stepped back inside, a voicemail from Claudia awaited. He listened. Elias, her voice trembled with carefully orchestrated emotion, I don't recognize you anymore. You used to be such a gentle soul. What happened to the little boy who used to pick flowers for me in the garden? Now you're cold, detached. Did we fail you somehow? Click. He deleted it. By noon, he had received a message from Serena with a photo attachment. He opened it hesitantly. It was a picture of her in the hospital waiting room, face pale and makeup smeared. The caption read, "Stress has wrecked me. I can't sleep. Can't eat. I don't know how much longer I can take this." Wow, Elias muttered. She's pulling the health card already. His phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. Unknown, you think this is just about money? She's your sister, for God's sake. He blocked it immediately. The memory of Serena's past resurfaced uninvited. 3 years earlier, Serena had announced her latest soul realignment sabbatical. She jetted off to some lush mountain resort in South America for 3 weeks of jungle detoxes, crystal therapy, and Reiki healing sessions. Elias had rolled his eyes then. He had just finished paying off his student loans and could barely afford a weekend getaway, let alone an international healing pilgrimage. A week after her return, their mother had called him in tears. "Sweetheart, your sister's behind on rent again. It's just temporary. Maybe a few thousand until she's back on her feet." He had said no, then too. And Serena had promptly posted a photo from a luxury spa with the caption, "New beginnings, new me." He remembered thinking then, her rock bottom has a champagne menu. Present day, Elias's phone rang again. Against his better judgment, he picked up. Claudia's voice hit him like a wave. "Elias. Oh, thank God. Please, just listen. You've devastated your sister. She's in crisis, and you're just sipping coffee like nothing happened. I'm not responsible for her poor decisions," he said flatly. "She's your sister. And I'm not her bailout fund. She's been through so much. She's caused so much. You're so cold." "No, Mom," he said softly, "I'm just done." There was a pause. "You don't mean that," she whispered. "I do." And he hung up. By evening, a new message arrived. This time from his father. "Walter, come over tonight. Let's talk. Just you and me. No drama. No pressure." Elias stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed, "Fine. One last conversation." He arrived at the house just after dusk. The golden glow of the porch light cast long shadows on the lawn. As he stepped inside, he immediately sensed it, the staging, the roles, the trap. Serena was curled up on the couch like a broken doll, swaddled in a blanket, her eyes conveniently red and glistening. Claudia was pacing, her hands fluttering like anxious birds. Walter stood by the fireplace, arms crossed like a courtroom judge. "I thought it was just Dad," Elias said, eyeing the ensemble. "We all deserve to be heard," Claudia replied sternly. Serena sniffled, barely lifting her gaze. "I've never felt so betrayed." Elias sat, but only because his legs ached and his patience was thin. "Elias," Claudia began, voice trembling with performative sincerity, "this isn't about property. It's about family. Compassion. Love. Then love me enough to stop asking me to destroy my life." "You live alone in that old house," Walter cut in. "You don't need it like Serena does." "Why does she need it?" Elias asked. "She doesn't work. She doesn't pay her bills. She buys things she can't afford and blames the universe when reality bites." "That's not fair," Serena shouted suddenly, rising to her feet. "You've never had to live like I have." "You're right," Elias snapped. "Because I worked. I gave up vacations. I fixed Grandma's roof myself. I stayed up late proofreading manuscripts while you were dancing on rooftops in Rio. I needed that trip." She shrieked. "I was going through a breakup." "You've been going through something for 10 years, he shot back. "Enough." Claudia's voice cracked like a whip. "You will not speak to your sister like that." "She's not my sister right now," Elias said, standing slowly. "She's a crisis in designer clothes. Walter stepped forward. If you leave now, you're making a choice. I made it the second you all decided I was the family's savings account. Do this one thing for us, Claudia begged. Please, Elias. Don't turn your back. No, he said quietly, I'm finally facing forward. And with that, he walked out again. Outside, the coastal wind was colder than before. But it was real. Honest. Unlike the house behind him where love was leveraged like currency. Back at his own home, Elias stood on the porch and looked up at the faded shingles, the crooked weather vane, the familiar creak of the front door. This house was his, not just by deed, but by sweat, sacrifice, and solitude. He wasn't selfish. He was finally free. 3 days of silence had passed since Elias last heard their voices. 3 days of peace so delicate, he was afraid to breathe too deeply lest it shatter. But silence, in families like his, never meant surrender. It meant strategy. On the 4th day, the doorbell rang just after sunset. Elias had just finished a late edit for a debut novel when he heard the chime echo through the hallway. He walked to the door, hesitated, and peeked through the antique glass. A car he recognized. A voice he didn't expect. Elias, open up. It's Uncle Damon. His shoulders tensed. Uncle Damon, his father's older brother, was the kind of man who wore cologne to bed and spoke like everything was a negotiation. He'd built a modest fortune in the hospitality business and was the family's go-to symbol of success. When Elias was younger, Damon would often tell him, be a shark, not a sponge. It never really made sense, but it always sounded like advice. Elias opened the door. Damon, he said. Didn't expect a visit. I know, Damon replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Can I come in? Elias stepped aside. They sat in the drawing room, Elias in the armchair, Damon on the edge of the couch, legs crossed, whiskey in hand, like he was prepping for a merger. I hear there's been some friction, Damon began. Is that what we're calling it now? Damon chuckled lightly. Elias, I'm not here to take sides. I'm here because family is complicated, and sometimes, it takes an outside voice to help navigate things. Elias folded his arms. You mean they sent you to talk sense into me? Damon didn't deny it. I'm here to offer perspective. Maybe even a solution. I'm not selling my home, Elias said flatly. If that's the solution, this conversation's over. I didn't say you should. But maybe you could, I don't know, consider a temporary loan? A line of credit? You're doing well, I hear. You've got equity. Leverage. Leverage, Elias repeated with a bitter laugh. That's what this is to all of you, isn't it? A game of assets. I'm the one piece on the board that hasn't collapsed. Elias, Damon said, voice shifting into patronizing calm, your sister is in a spiral. She needs help. She needs consequences. Damon sipped his drink. That's cold. No. That's reality. There was a knock at the door. Damon smiled. Ah, right on time. Elias frowned. You invited more people? The front door opened, without permission. Claudia. Walter. Serena. They walked in as if the house were theirs. What the hell is this? Elias demanded. A conversation, Claudia said, setting her coat down. One you've avoided long enough. Serena trailed behind, eyes puffy again, wrapped in an oversized cardigan that looked like a costume of vulnerability. I told you all, Elias said, voice rising, this is my home. And we're not leaving until you listen, Walter said firmly. Elias exhaled sharply. So this is an ambush. It's an intervention, Damon corrected. Let's not get dramatic. Serena collapsed onto the couch, dabbing at her eyes. I haven't slept in days, Elias. I've been seeing a therapist. They say I'm on the verge of a breakdown. That therapist should tell you to get a job, Elias muttered. Claudia stepped in. Stop it. Just stop. Enough with the cruelty. Where is your compassion? Your heart? You want heart? Elias snapped. I gave you years of heart. I sent Serena money when I had nothing. I spent nights worrying about this family's bills more than I worried about my own damn health. And what did I get? Silence. Until I said no. Now suddenly, I'm the villain? You're the one who changed, Walter said. This coldness. It's not you. This is me, Elias replied. The version that's done being used. Serena needs help, Claudia repeated. She needs accountability. Serena shot up from the couch. Do you think I want to be in this position? No, Elias said. I think you expect someone else to pay for it. God, You are so smug, she spat. So proud of that dusty old house and your sad little life. Better a sad little life I built than a glamorous fantasy paid for with everyone else's sacrifices. Damon leaned forward. Let me offer something simple, Elias. What if Serena moved in with you? Temporarily. Just until she finds her footing. No. You have space. I have boundaries. Serena's voice cracked like ice. I hate you. Elias nodded slowly. Then we're finally being honest. Claudia gasped, holding her chest. What did we do wrong with you? You raised a daughter who never had to grow up, Elias said. And a son you thought would pay for that mistake forever. Walter stepped forward. If you don't help your sister now, you'll regret it. No, Elias said, standing, his voice calm, measured. You'll regret never teaching her to stand on her own. Damon sighed. Elias, pride is a dangerous thing. So is entitlement, Elias replied. There was a pause. The fire crackled in the hearth. No one spoke. Then Serena whispered, You're dead to me. Elias turned to her. Finally. Some peace and quiet. He walked to the door and opened it wide. One chance to leave before I call the police. Claudia's mouth fell open. You wouldn't. Try me. Walter hesitated, but took Claudia's hand. Serena followed, fuming, muttering curses under her breath. Damon stayed behind a moment, finishing his drink. I thought you were smarter than this, he said. And I thought you were more decent than this. Damon gave him a long look, then left. Elias locked the door. It was the first time he'd ever used that lock against his family. And it felt right. He leaned against the door, listening to the silence swell and stretch until it became something sacred. A week passed. Then two. Elias had hoped, foolishly, that after the failed intervention, his family would back off. Perhaps they would realize that the path to self-reliance was not paved by others' sacrifices. But that was not the case. It began subtly, the way storms do, first a shift in the wind, then a distant rumble. The first sign came on a Wednesday afternoon. Elias was walking back from the town library, a rare indulgence in his otherwise quiet, work-heavy days, when he bumped into his old neighbor, Mrs. Haddock. She was in her late 70s, sharp as a blade, and connected to everyone in town through a maze of gossip lines. Elias, she said, eyes wide. So glad I caught you. He smiled politely. Good afternoon, Mrs. Haddock. I just wanted to ask, are you really putting the house up for sale? Elias stopped. Excuse me? Oh, well, your mother was talking to the real estate agent down the road, Mr. Keegan. Said they were exploring options for your place. Said you were reconsidering. Blood drained from Elias's face. Mrs. Haddock, he said slowly, I haven't spoken to that agent. Nor did I authorize anyone to speak for me. Oh dear, she whispered, concern washing over her face. That's not what they made it sound like. He nodded stiffly and made his way home, heart thudding in his chest like a war drum. The moment he stepped inside, he went to his study and opened his email. He scrolled past manuscripts and spam until his eyes landed on the subject line. Notice of mortgage inquiry, Coastal Trust Bank. He opened it. We've received a request for information regarding refinancing options on your property. If this was not authorized by you, please contact us immediately. His throat tightened. They hadn't just guilted him. They hadn't just manipulated him. Now, they were trying to interfere with his finances. His phone rang. It was Claudia. He answered, voice like ice. Did you try to refinance my house? Silence. Then, Elias, don't overreact. That's not a no. We were just exploring possibilities. That's all. For what? A home that doesn't belong to you. Claudia sighed like a martyr. We thought if we could present you with a better financial option, something that helped everyone, you might be more open to compromise. Compromise, Elias repeated, nearly spitting the word. You mean control. It's not like that. You attempted to access my mortgage behind my back, Mother. You weren't listening to reason. No, Elias said, voice rising, I wasn't caving. There's a difference. He hung up. Then he called the bank, filed the fraud alert, and secured every account with new passwords and two-factor authentication. He changed his locks. He even installed a camera by the front door, not out of paranoia, but out of necessity. They weren't just trying to manipulate him emotionally anymore. They were trying to force his hand. The next few days were a blur of fury and phone calls. Texts from extended family flooded in like a tsunami of passive aggression. Aunt Marla, your mother is in tears, Elias. Just call her. Cousin Theo, what's going on? Why is everyone saying you've turned your back on Serena? Uncle Bren, family means sacrifice. You're better than this. They had launched a smear campaign. One where Elias was the ungrateful son, the bitter hermit, the heartless brother who refused to lift a finger for his fragile sister. He ignored them all. Until one message came from a number not saved in his contacts. Unknown, I hope you're happy. Mom can't sleep. Dad's ashamed of you. You're a disgrace. Elias didn't need to guess. He replied with one word, blocked. Then did just that. The final straw came on a foggy Saturday morning. Elias had just brewed his first cup of coffee and was reviewing page edits from a client when he heard his doorbell ring. He checked the monitor, an old man with a clipboard. The name tag read County Records. He opened the door. Morning, the man said. Just here for a scheduled property inspection. The request was filed through your family. Something about prepping for sale. Elias' blood ran cold. There is no sale, he said. No inspection. And no authorization. The man blinked. I was told otherwise. Elias stepped out onto the porch, his voice calm but firm. You were misinformed. If anyone other than me submits something related to this house again, you're going to be hearing from my lawyer. The man apologized and left quickly, visibly shaken. Elias stood in the cold breeze, heart pounding. This wasn't just overstepping anymore. It was invasion. That night, he did what he had been resisting for weeks. He drafted a message, brief, clear, and final. To Claudia, Walter, and Serena. Any further attempts to interfere with my property, finances, or personal life will be considered harassment. This is your last warning. Do not contact me again. He sent it. Then blocked all their numbers, emails, and social media accounts. Every last one. It was the digital equivalent of deadbolting the doors of his life. In the following days, the quiet returned. Not the stillness of peace, but the eerie hush after a violent storm, where you walk through the wreckage and check to see what's still standing. Elias was still standing. His house, still his. His life, finally his own. But deep inside, he knew they wouldn't go quietly. They never did. A month passed. Then another. The messages stopped. The voicemails stopped. The guilt, however, lingered, like smoke in the walls of Elias's old Victorian house. Even silence could echo when it was charged with years of emotional debt. For a while, Elias expected another ambush. A letter. A surprise visit. Maybe even an email dripping in desperate remorse. But nothing came. Until one late afternoon in spring. Elias had just returned from a quiet walk along the cliffs behind his house, the ocean crashing far below in rhythmic defiance of human drama. He poured himself a glass of red wine and opened his inbox. He wasn't prepared for what waited there. From, unknown. Subject, can we talk? Message, hi. It's Serena. I've been thinking about everything. I just want to talk. Please. He stared at the screen, blinking. Not I'm sorry. Not I was wrong. Just please. He didn't respond. He didn't even hesitate. He deleted the email and closed his laptop. Some people don't change. And he was done saving those who refuse to be saved. A year after the intervention, Elias had transformed his life. He'd renovated the second floor of his house into a writing loft. His editing business had grown steadily, and he was now mentoring junior editors across the region. He'd even purchased a tiny cottage on the opposite end of town, a backup plan, he liked to say, just in case ghosts from the past ever decided to come knocking. He never needed to use it. What had changed most, though, wasn't his bank balance or his business. It was his peace. No more waking up to passive-aggressive texts. No more pretending he was family when he was just a wallet with a face. No more apologizing for boundaries he had every right to draw. The few friends he had, real ones, noticed. You're lighter, his colleague Mireille said one afternoon over coffee. Like someone took a stone off your back. They took a whole quarry, he replied with a smile. The town whispers eventually reached him. Serena hadn't paid her debts. Their parents, desperate to save her, had taken out a second mortgage on their home. Rumor had it they were now considering selling the villa. Elias didn't rejoice. But he didn't regret his choice either. One day, while sorting through a pile of old mail, he came across a letter that had slipped behind the entryway table. No return address, but he recognized the handwriting instantly. Claudia's cursive had always been pristine, even in anger. He opened it slowly. Elias. We don't understand you anymore. You used to care. You used to be kind. You used to be ours. Now you act like we're strangers. Was your home really worth destroying this family? Is that house worth more than us? We miss you. Your sister misses you. Even if she can't say it. Please, don't let this silence be permanent. Love. Mom. Elias folded the letter and slid it into a drawer. Not out of sentiment. But as a reminder. A reminder that love, when twisted into leverage, becomes debt. That family, when weaponized, becomes prison. That sometimes, walking away isn't selfish, it's survival. He didn't reply. He went out into the garden, barefoot, and watered his grandmother's old rose bushes. The red blooms had returned that spring, just as vibrant and stubborn as always. Later that night, he posted an anonymous story online. Just to get it off his chest. He didn't expect the reaction. Thousands of strangers flooded the comments section. Some shared their own stories of being the responsible sibling, the dependable one, the one who was always expected to pay, fix, forgive. Some criticized him. But most supported him. They said, you did the right thing. They said, you chose yourself. That's brave. They said, you don't owe anyone your life. He read every single comment. And for the first time in his adult life, he realized something profound. He wasn't alone. To those who asked, don't you miss them? Sometimes. Sometimes the silence aches. Sometimes he hears a voice that sounds like Serena's in a crowd and turns, heart fluttering. Sometimes he dreams of Sunday dinners that never ended in accusations. But every time he remembers the guilt, the manipulation, the slow erosion of self-worth, they fade. He does not regret saving himself. He does not regret saying no. To those who asked, how did you move on? It wasn't easy. The guilt doesn't vanish overnight. Years of being conditioned to please, to obey, to fix others don't disappear just because you walk away. But each day got lighter. Each day he woke up in his house, surrounded by silence, not sadness, was a day of healing. He created a life that wasn't built around someone else's disaster. He chose joy. He chose himself. To those who asked, would you ever let them back in? If they showed remorse, not just regret, but change. If they stopped viewing his life as a resource. If they came without expectations, only apologies. Maybe. But he didn't hold his breath. He'd learned to breathe without them. In the end, Elias didn't need closure from them. He was the closure. And he was finally, completely, free.